That night Chicago cried, CM Punk, CM Punk, CM Punk, CM Punk, CM Punk, na 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 na, CM Punk, CM Punk, CM Punk, and also CM Punk. I'm John Renton with the retro review of WWE Money in the Bank 2011. Provided that my terrible singing did not instantly turn people off from watching the rest of this review, it is time to talk about the famed pay-per-view that took place 10 years ago today. And while I do apologize for having this review up later than I intended, I actually tried to watch some of this last night and then tried to watch the rest of it today after work. I figured, why not just slam it into one goddamn evening? And I worked about 9 hours, but what the fuck? This is a big goddamn deal. I will admit that some aspects of this pay-per-view were not that great at the time and are even worse now with the benefit of hindsight. But that fucking atmosphere, just hook it to my veins. Really, really good shit. In Chicago, Illinois, Allstate Arena. The announced crowd was 14,815 people, but it was actually around 12,000 people. But WWE has never lied about their goddamn attendance figures. 93,173 people in the Silverdome. It's good to be back in the Silverdome, isn't it, Hulk? You fucking idiot. Anyway, but that's enough about that. That show that didn't happen for nearly 3 years after this. It's time to talk about CM Punk versus John Cena later in the review. I want to know your thoughts on this, particular show in the comments, please. Do you feel that CM Punk versus John Cena is overrated? Do you feel the atmosphere makes it? Do you feel that, maybe the pay-per-view itself is overrated? The atmosphere really does make that match better than it actually is. They would go on to have better matches, during their, time feuding in 2012. And a terrific, number one contenders match, February 25th, 2013, I believe. Where really CM Punk should have still been WWE Champion, but whatever. It's not like Dwayne needed a goddamn reign, and they could have had end of 500 days, but whatever. It is what it is. Anyway, the dark match was Santino Marella and Vladimir Kozlov versus David Otunga and Michael McGillicuddy, the future Curtis Axel. Yeah, for the Raw Tag Team Championships, or the World Tag Team Championships. The penny ones. They were for the penny championships. Seriously, they look so goddamn ridiculous. That opening video package of Punk and Cena got the crowd electric. Jerry Lawler, heel Michael Cole, and Booker T on commentary. So as far as star power goes, when Lawler's your best commentator, oh dear, you are in real trouble, especially in 2011. So it starts off with the World Title Money in the Bank ladder match, and it's Daniel Bryan, Cody Rhodes in the mask, the weird, plastic mask, Wade Barrett, Heath Slater, Kane, Justin Gabriel, Sin Cara, Sheamus, and yeah, whoever wins this gets a future World Championship opportunity. They were doing that even 10 years ago. Fucking hell. God damn it, Vince. Just say match. Just say match. You don't have to say shot if you really don't want to. Just say match. Opportunity just is too wordy. Anyway, a lot of this was just, people doing their crazy spots and everything. I would argue this was a little bit better than the Raw one, even though the Raw one had a little more fun. This is a little more cohesive. You did have the spots where, Wade Barrett was trying to get Justin Gabriel and Heath Slater to join. Oh, Nexus. You're either Nexus or against us. And he tried to get them to help him, and they sort of did, and then they beat him up, and then Daniel Bryan went going absolutely nuts, as Daniel Bryan was known to do. Sin Cara, forgetting how ladders work. You're supposed to stand him up, you goddamn idiot, and he laid it down for a spot where he got powerbombed through it by Sheamus, and then stretchered off. This is actually because he failed a wellness test. He had just debuted a bit before, a few months before, and I saw his first pay-per-view match, that is, at Over the Limit 2011. And if you thought that bad orange-blue lighting, if you thought that looked like shit on TV, it looks even worse in person. My God, it didn't mask the fact that the guy was a cool mask, and that's it. He really wasn't very good. Yes, Mystico was impressive, but he didn't really translate well to WWE. So yeah, he got stretchered out. This isn't the only stretcher job and injury angle that they did the entire goddamn show. I forgot how many they did, and it really got watered down. So we do get Cody chance. Whatever happened to Cody Rhodes? Whatever the fuck happened to that guy? Oh, right, he's the guy that ended racism, by beating Anthony Monster Ogogo. God, oh boy. Anyway, so he has a daughter named Liberty that he can shorten to Cry More Lib. He would do that. So anyway, Crossroads aplenty, and then we get a weird spot where Slater gets picked up on the ladder and then gets kind of tossed, and it was really, really weird outside on Kane. Kane does go nuts at one point after Sheamus does a bunch of brogue kicks. Kane goes crazy with a whole bunch of, like, you know, crazy, like, power moves, as he was known to do. And then Kane got ganged up on. Not Kang. They didn't target the brain in his stomach. And if you get it, you get it. Barrett goes, you know, a little bit crazy, hits Wasteland, actually tosses Slater out on Gabriel, which was a little bit dangerous. Bryan then knocks Barrett out with a kick and wins it to a big pop. And heel Michael Cole's all like, oh, this guy's such a nerd, this guy's such this and everything, when Daniel Bryan could have easily kicked his head off. And I kind of wish would have, because then we wouldn't have Michael Cole on commentary being absolutely terrible in 2021. But this was a big moment, and Daniel Bryan gained the victory. This was good shit. We then get Vincent, John Laurinaitis, and some guy playing the lawyer, or maybe Vince's actual lawyer, or one of his lawyers. Maybe it was the People Power lawyer. I'm not going to try to do John Laurinaitis' voice, because I already overshot it with the intro. So anyway, they arrive earlier. They weren't able to sign CM Punk. We find that out later. Kelly versus Brie Bella, Divas Championship match. I saw this match at Over the Limit 2011. Yes, I'm going back to Over the Limit 2011. It was either Kelly versus Brie or Kelly versus Nikki. I don't know, because at this point they looked alike, and I didn't give a shit, because why would I give a shit about either of these people in the ring? Good luck following that, ladies. I mean, like, the Divas Championship looked like a friggin' like little Cracker Jack toy that you would get, and not even a good one. Eve Torres was in the corner of Kelly, and you had Nikki there in Brie's corner. And, well, it ended after a few minutes. The crowd didn't give a shit about it, and Kelly won with a face jam. Maybe if they had put this, like, I don't know, another match up or something like that, not the opening match, but if they had put this, like, third or fourth match, it maybe would have been better. Because the women weren't going to be taken seriously, and neither Kelly or Brie were very good at this point, and really never were. And Kelly got dealt a bad hand because they never really properly trained her, and she got to the point where she yelled doing head scissors. And that's about her big contribution to wrestling. Apparently she's really nice. I just never really cared for her in the ring. I mean, but they also never really gave me a reason to care besides, oh, she's a pretty blonde. Anyway, Mark Henry versus Big Show. Big men smashing into each other repeatedly. I saw that in a movie once. It didn't last long, but it started hot with some chops and some strikes, and then a step spot injures Show's knee. Mark Henry targets it, and then the crowd got subdued for a couple minutes. It was only like a 6-minute long match. And then we get a shoulder block off the ropes by Big Show, and then we get World's Strongest Slam for 2. We get a second one, and then 2 splashes, 1, 2, 3. And Mark Henry then takes a chair, puts it on Big Show's foot, and stomps on. And Big Show's foot, you know, oh God, it's all torn up and everything. His ankle's all torn up. And this is only because they decided that they were finally going to push Mark Henry after like 15 years of having him in the company. And then he would get injured, like, you know, a couple months into his world title reign, because unfortunately, once the injury bug bites, it doesn't really let you go. But this would start the ascent to the Hall of Pain and stuff like that, and he did some really good shit. So anyway, it was kind of cool. They did a second stretcher job, but they couldn't fit him on a stretcher, Big Show that is, so they brought out one of those, carts that they use to wheel off football players. Apparently they just went from Soldier Field and went, we're just going to go this way. And they did that, and then the thing whistled, and the engine died, and they had to push it. And it was really funny to what? No, they didn't have to do that, but they got him out of there, and it was kind of funny, though, while he was trying to sell this, the crowd was chanting CM Punk. Some things never change. Vince and Laurinaitis are backstage, and Vince says to Josh Matthews, why the fuck are you here? Why did I sign you? Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I wish he had said that, because Josh Matthews is a goddamn piece of shit and should have never been involved in wrestling. But he hasn't signed Punk yet, and I noticed that Vince has aged 30 years in the last 10. Look at him here, and look at him now. It is scary. So anyway, he says if Punk leaves with the WWE Championship, may God have mercy on Cena's soul. May God have mercy on his soul. Who is Cena? I can't see him. So anyway, except if you have the Nakamura glasses. If you get that, you get that. Del Rio versus Alex Riley versus Evan Bourne versus Jack Swagger versus Kofi versus Miz versus Truth versus Ray. WWE Championship Money in the Bank ladder match. This is back when people gave a shit about Del Rio, except one guy in the crowd who wrote a sign. Read a sign that said, Alberto Del Rio mows my grass. So anyway, heel Michael Cole was ridiculous because he was cheering on Miz. And Miz had recently been turned on by his protege, Alex Riley. And then also, two of these guys are all elite. It's kind of funny looking at it. Evan Bourne and Swagger, in case you didn't get it. And Evan Bourne got more interesting, and Swagger is still Swagger. So anyway, Del Rio just got buried under a bunch of layers. They were just like, here, let's just bury this guy, literally. I mean, he was a #1 contender, and then Punk got reinstated, and they decided to just give Del Rio the briefcase. So they kept fighting over small ladders. They are fighting over shampoo. Actually, they were using the small ladders to damage people. And this is when Truth was talking to himself like crazy, as well as like normal. I mean, normal people talk to themselves all the goddamn time, don't they? They talk to them. Oh, right. I'm sorry. Camera's still on. Truth was doing his crazy stuff here. And this wasn't, I would argue this is just a step below the other one, but it did have a lot of car crash moments. We got some dives. We got Truth diving. We got Kofi and Ray doing some dueling dives. And then Bourne does a shooting star outside off the ladder because, of course, he fucking did. And then Miz hurt his knee and then went backstage and then came out for something a little bit later. So we get some flippy shit, and then people do a bunch of car crash stuff because that's what you do in a ladder match, and they want to do a little more of that rather than storytelling. So it's a human centipede with ladders and also humans, and everybody gets knocked down. Kofi at one point, Kofi and Swagger tumble, and Kofi's leg lands right on Swagger's head, and if Swagger possessed a brain, then that would have caused a head injury. But we know Proud Boy Swagger, Proud Boy Hager, doesn't have a brain, because no Proud Boys do. Anyway, Miz comes out after everyone's down. Ray stops Miz, gets booed heavily. Goddamn. Del Rio unmasks Ray while he's on the ladder, and then Ray, who's trying to hide his face, can't move the ladder over and then bumps Del Rio off, and the ladder's all clustered together. He gets pissed, pulls a Shawn Michaels at SummerSlam 1995, slams the ladder down, climbs up, and gets a briefcase to a big pop. And one of the last big pops that Del Rio would get. So anyway, we get Christian versus Orton. After Del Rio says that this is just the first step in his destiny. Christian versus Orton, world title match. If Orton gets DQ'd, he loses the world title. So Orton gets DQ'd and loses the world title. They had a great feud in 2011. I got to see probably, arguably, their best match at Over the Limit 2011. It was the best pure wrestling match. And besides seeing Bret Hart, that was really the only reason to go to that goddamn show. See him put a sharpshooter on Michael Cole and hopefully lean back and maybe teach Michael Cole how to, act like a human on commentary. But anyway, then they had one at Extreme Rules, and then they had one here, and then they would have one at SummerSlam. So Orton got DQ'd because even though they did some moves and everything, Christian eventually countered the RKO, slipping out of it, and then spat in Orton's face, and then Orton just beat him down, stopped himself, and then kicked him, just football kicked him right in the groin, low blowing him. That caused a DQ. Christian's the world champion, but then Orton goes nuts, hits an RKO on the Spanish announcer's table. It didn't break. And then one more time, he comes back out, does another one, and it still doesn't break. All right. And that great way to just destroy Christian. And he only held the championship for like a goddamn month, but still, like, wow, great way to feature Christian there. Anyway, we then get a CM Punk gain a godlike reaction. Holy fuck. They had to get goddamn goosebumps just thinking about this. Was insane. His family, pretty much his adopted family, you don't need blood to be family. He said this in his documentary out a number of years ago. I don't remember their names exactly. But, it was great. And they got to see him there. They were front row. They were front row basically, if like you're staring at the ring. They're the row right there. So he got to celebrate a bit with them. And then Cena got huge boos. He would eventually get a few cheers here because there were some Cena fans, even some that actually were allowed out of the house without supervision to be in a hot Chicago crowd that was going to probably eviscerate them if they said anything more. Punk versus Cena, WWE Championship match. I'm not going to go into move for move here because it's about the atmosphere. The fucking atmosphere is incredible. Just Punk getting cheered like a god. Cena getting booed like crazy, even though they would get a few mixed responses a little bit later. But we would get some rest holds. We would get Punk doing a dive outside, right in front of his family. We get an STFU, or an STF rather, into the ropes, and then switch to the Anaconda Vice after he got the STF on again, and then we get an AA for 2. Oh no. We get a weird, counter where it's like he was trying to do a powerbomb counter, Punk did. And then leg drop off the top by Cena for 2, which was a pretty bold move, actually, him doing that. And then we get an A again for 2, and then GTS, but Cena, gets hit low, or gets hit in the wrist, but gets knocked out. So, no, what's going to happen? Vince and Laurinaitis suddenly show up, and Punk's distracted just long enough to when he gets back in the ring, STF, and then Vince is like, ring the bell, ring the bell. He sends Laurinaitis down. We're having a Chicago screw job. Cena's like, oh no, boom. And since Laurinaitis couldn't see Cena, he didn't see the punch coming. And then he's like, not that way. We're doing it my way. Gets back in the ring, GTS, boom. 1, 2, 3. The Allstate Arena just collapsed at that point, and nobody was, it just seemed like it collapsed because the reaction just blew the goddamn roof. It was insane. Fucking insane. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. And he's celebrating CM Punk, and Vince tears Lawler's headset off and says, get Del Rio out here, or cut that music off. Get Del Rio out here. Have him cash it in. So he has him cash it in, or tries to. The bell never rings because Punk kicks him in the head, and then, leaves and, gets on the barricade and does it. And does that. Kiss goodbye. Goodbye. He's gone. Goes up the stairs. He's celebrating with everybody. The fans are going crazy, and man, that's the way you hook people for Raw the next day. Will I retro review that Raw? I don't know, because Money in the Bank 2021 is tomorrow, and I've been busy with work and also applying for other work, so we will see. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. It means a lot. Anyway, let me know what you thought of this pay-per-view in the comments, please. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.